After the fall of the Kushan Empire, several powers rose in northern India. And of these several powers, it is the Nagas who are the most mysterious. When we analyze the Puranas, we find that three centers of Naga power existed before the rise of the Guptas. The city of Kantipuri was one of the three centers of Naga power. And this city, according to scholars, was situated near the modern day city of Mirzapur in Uttar Pradesh. And apart from the city of Kantipuri, we are told that the city of Mathura was also an important center of Naga power. And in the Puranas, we are told that 7 Naga kings ruled from Mathura. Although both Mathura and Kantipuri are associated with the Nagas, it is the city of Padmavati, which was sometimes called Champavati, which was the center of Naga power. In the Vayu and Brahmand Puran, we are told that 9 Naga kings ruled from this city. In the Puranas, this city is called Pavaya. And when we analyze the coins from this region, we find that this city was the center of a Naga dynasty which was called Bhar Shiva. But before we talk about the history of the Bhar Shivas, let's first find out how the Bhar Shivas got this name. The name Bhar Shiva comes from a myth which these kings told themselves about their origin. We are told in various inscriptions that the Bhar Shiva dynasty was founded by a favor of Lord Shiva. And this favor of Lord Shiva was granted because the ancestors of Bhar Shiva had carried a shivling on their shoulder. And that is how they earned the title of Bhar Shiva and also got a kingdom. From the coins of the Bhar Shivas, it becomes clear that these Bhar Shivas were ardent worshippers of Lord Shiva. When we analyze their coins, we can clearly see that the symbol of bull and trident is there. One of the earliest Bhar Shiva kings which we know of is Ganendra or Ganapa, as he is sometimes called in his coins. When we analyze the distribution of the coins of Ganapa, we can clearly see that Ganapa controlled the city of Padmavati, and apart from Padmavati, his rule extended to Vidisha in the south and the city of Mathura in the north. This suggests that when the Kushanas began to decline, it was probably under the leadership of Ganendra that the Nagas of Padmavati extended their rule in north up to Mathura and south up to the city of Vidisha. And it was probably during this period that the Bhar Shivas had also conquered the city of Varanasi. We can say this because the Bhar Shiva seems to have performed 10 Ashwamedh sacrifice on the banks of river Ganga. The Ghat of Dashwashwamedh, according to a legend, got its name because of these 10 Vedic sacrifices that were performed by the Bhar Shivas. Now it is very hard for us to say whether this myth is true or not, but what we can speculate is that it does appear that the Bhar Shivas had some control of Varanasi for a particular period of time. The myth which talks about how the Bhar Shivas got their name also talks about that the Bhar Shivas had obtained the pure water of Bhagirathi because of their valor. So this myth suggests that the Bhar Shiva did control the city of Varanasi for a certain period of time. It was probably because of this expansion of the Bhar Shivas that the city of Mathura and the city of Kantipuri was associated with the Nagas. So we see that after the fall of the Kushanas, the region of the Ganga Valley became the center of Naga power, and this continued up to the 4th century CE. And it was only after the rise of the Guptas, and particularly the rise of Samudragupta, that the Naga power came to an end in this region. From Samudragupta's inscription, we learn that Samudragupta had defeated 2 Naga kings, Nagasen and Ganapati Naga. Although the Naga power had sufficiently declined during the Samudragupta's period, it does not mean that the Nagas disappeared from Indian history. We find that even during the reign of Samudragupta, the Nagas enjoyed some powers, because we find that a Naga princess, Kuber Naga, was married to Samudragupta's son Chandragupta II. And we also find that Samudragupta had appointed a Naga as a provincial governor of an important province of Antarvedi, which is the region between the city of Haridwar and up to the city of Prayag. The union of the Guptas and the Nagas in the form of Kuber Naga as a Naga princess and Chandragupta II as a Gupta prince is an important event in Indian history, because it was Prabhavati Gupta, who was the daughter of Kuber Naga and Chandragupta II, who became an important player in Indian history, particularly because of her relations with the Vakatakas. Now we will talk about Vakatakas and Guptas in a later video, but it is important that the Nagas did play an important role in this period's history. Although Samudragupta seems to have conquered the Nagas, it does appear from Junagadh inscription that there was probably a rebellion of the Nagas in this region, and Samudragupta seems to have severely crushed this rebellion. When we look at the city of Padmavati, although it was no longer a center of Naga power, we find that it did continue as an important city, and its splendor and magnificence is also recorded in an inscription in the temple of Khajuraho. So up until now, we have only talked about the Nagas who came after the fall of the Kushanas. But for historians and scholars, we find that it is the origin of the Nagas and the question of who these Nagas were is of utmost importance. So you can see that in various writings of different historians, this origin of Nagas has been an important point of discussion. So there was this theory by the famous Scottish art historian James Ferguson that the Nagas were of Central Asian origin, and they were defeated by the invading Aryans who came to India around 1500 BC. Now this was one theory. We find that there is another theory that talks about how the Nagas were indigenous tribes that belonged to India, and when the Aryans invaded, they became a subject people of the Aryans. Now these theories are controversial, and we do not know still how the Nagas originated or who these Nagas were. But what we can say is that these Nagas, whose origin is still unknown, had an important impact in Indian history. When we look at the earliest Indian history, particularly the history of Magad during the reign of Bimbisar and Ajatasattu, some scholars have argued that Bimbisar and Ajatasattu belonged to a dynasty of the Nagas, that is Shishu Nag. And when we move to the postmodern history, we find that some scholars have argued that the Satvahanas were also related to the Nagas. Then we have a copper plate inscription that was found in Lahore that talks about two Naga kings. First is Maheshwar Naga and the second is Nagbhat. Although we do not know who this Maheshwar Naga and Nagbhat were, but it does show that the Naga influence was also there in the Punjab region. Then we also see that the Karkota dynasty of Kashmir is also associated with the Nagas. So when we analyze all of this, we can clearly say that the Nagas, whose origin is still not known, had an important impact in Indian history. And it was only in the postmodern period that we find there is clear evidence that the Nagas ruled some parts of northern India and central India. And if you want to know more about the postmodern period, watch this playlist. Thank you for watching.